Producer Ashley here with a content warning. This episode does contain a discussion around alcohol and substance use. Timestamps are included in the show notes.
Hey folks, welcome to Hey Adora, your queer She/Her podcast. I'm Force Captain Meth, they, them.
And I am Princess Jenny, she, her.
And today we are discussing Season 1, Episode 6, System Failure, or Robots.
Robots everywhere, and not a drop to drink.
And tiny food.
Yes, plenty of delicious fizzy beverages to drink, but nothing else.
System Failure was written by Catherine Nolfi, storyboarded by Diane He, Angela Kim, and Sam Szymanski, and directed by Stephanie Stein.
Nice.
Right. Oh, who's that disembodied voice?
There's an extra person in our cloud space today.
Yes, we have a special guest, our very first special guest here on Hey Adora, and I am over all of the moons of Etheria to talk about her.
Yes.
Our special guest today is Stephanie Burt. Stephanie, want to say hey?
Hey!
Hooray and hey! So, Stephanie is a professor of English at Harvard and writes books and stuff. She comes from Washington, D.C. via New York, New England, and especially Minnesota. Her most recent books are After Calmiticus from Princeton University Press and Don't Read Poetry, a book about how to read poems from basic books. There's going to be a mini book out from Rain Taxi Editions this spring with poems about, you guessed it, She-Ra, and about some of our podcast favorites, Buffy, and about the X-Men.
Solid!
Right?
Yeah!
Steph is also a devotee of the greatest mutant that has ever existed on Earth 616. Kitty Pryde.
Red Queen Captain Kate Pryde.
What are we doing on this long mountainous road?
I think we are on our way to a kingdom called Drill.
And it is the least kingdom-like
I agree.
of all of the kingdoms. And the other thing about Drill is that, I think it's the only domain that we've seen so far that remotely works this way. No one lives outside the castle.
Yes. It reminds me of Irontown from Princess Mononoke, actually. It has that, side of a mountain. There's a lot of talk about drilling. It's less about being in touch with the natural surroundings of it, like Selenius is, and like Plumeria is, and even Bright Moon to a certain extent, but more about imposing itself upon that. I mean, the very fact that the spire itself looks like a mining drill, and there's a lot of conversation about caves and mining, and
that's true.
It's not about the fluidity and the softness of the moon, or the trees, or
that's
the
true.
water.
Entrapta does not seem to belong on Etheria at all, and that's one of the early clues to who she's going to be and how she's going to relate to everything and everyone around her. We're told to call her a princess.
Right.
And so we call her a princess.
And we also, and when we get to that, we will definitely be talking a lot about Entrapta creating her own world, because that's a really important part of her character as metaphor as well.
Very much.
Yeah.
Our heroes have no idea what they're getting themselves into.
It's true.
But we don't know what they're getting into because we have our typical mad science entrapments. When we have the lightning striking over the castle.
Yes, the foreboding mood is well established.
Making cupcakes.
Actually,
Whoa.
Before we even get to the cupcakes, I wrote down my very first line after, you see the exterior, boom, boom, ominous, ominous, and then you see the inside before you even see any of the people. I wrote down creepy dolls that talk to you and then try to kill you music plays, just in case you forgot that we were establishing a mood of foreboding. That's what that music is like, that little broken piano music.
We're all friends here in Drill.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Lots of, quick head twitching and...
Yes,
ugh,
yes.
Blah.
I love the trope. I think it's hilarious.
Oh, I hate it. It trips me out so hard.
This episode in particular could be super horror.
It's a very good point.
I agree. There is definitely some elements of grotesque horror as well.
Yes, there is.
And we see that with the understanding of infection, which we're definitely going to touch upon. And that it does kind of it rides that line. And it does this is something that you see in a couple of other episodes as well. And yet it is a children's show. It is designed for an
all ages audience. Yeah, but there's a lot of very grown up themes, obviously, or we wouldn't all be here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, tiny food, tiny food.
Tiny food.
Nice lady with an apron and green hair is preparing the tiny food.
And she's definitely designed in that kind of almost that like trope of like the fuller figured baker homey. There's a you know, the apron and the baking and the homey. There's a softness to her that in contrast with the stone and the electricity indicates that this is some sort of, I don't want to say caretaker, but definitely someone that is more along the lines of
She's extremely humanized and normalized right away. And she's shown as being out of sync with her environment and also being nervous and reflecting the way we assume the viewer would feel in response to being in this slightly creepy environment.
Yes.
With full of shadows and thunder and lightning and whatnot. You know, and buttered biscuits.
Exactly. She's soft in a place that is hard.
Yes. But it's not just that she's soft in a place that it's hard. It's that she's humanized in a place that is very cold and, you know, lifeless.
Full of robots.
Full of robots, but we haven't even seen the robots yet.
Well, we see it now when it comes to pick up the cupcake.
Yes.
The tiny piggy cupcake she was icing with the soda pop.
Delicious fizzy beverage, all complete. And she specifically says these things still freak her out. Even though it's making her life easier, she doesn't have to go getting lost in that maze of hers anymore.
Establishing setting.
Yes. Because you would think that even if they don't have GPS here in Drill, they should at least have a map.
They should at least have one of those things.
Then the little robot waiter comes zooping through the hallway, and we see, for the first time, that adorable portrait of Entrapta. Go ahead, Meth.
I have the portrait. Can I talk about the portrait?
Please talk about the portrait.
Yes! It shows that. So this is I'm actually looking at it right now. This is a little tiny baby Entrapta. She is a little kid. Mm-hmm. And she created these robots. The way that the scene is, it's a family portrait, right? So she made robot parents.
How do you know she made them?
She has a wrench in her hand and she's holding it up proudly.
Okay.
It is possible that she fixed them or that they taught her how to use a wrench. But Occam's razor.
Yeah, agreed.
Right, exactly. One, so they look like, you know, one of them we have the kind of the short hair with the visor, and the other one has a nice big bushy mustache and big bushy eyebrows.
Papa Robot?
Not to gender, but I am reading this coded as both male in this kind of understanding, and this leads to my theory that Entrapta has gay robot dads, and therefore this is my first gayest moment.
Nice. I am 100% behind that.
Entrapta seems to have come into the world with absolutely no biological heritage, no organic family.
Yeah, I wondered that too.
Just nothing. And that is a mystery that we do not have the tools to solve in the literal narrative level of what's happening on Etheria. Like, where did she come from? Was she found in the wilderness by robots? But we absolutely do on the emotional level.
Right.
I wondered that as well, like what happened to her biological family. And I also wondered what happened to her robot parents. It's not like they died of old age, but that is also an unanswerable question. They're not here. We just have to accept that.
We're not even acknowledging the amazing portraits that are in Entrapta's labyrinth.
It's true. There's other portraits. It's not just the robot parents.
There are some landscapes. There's some, you know, Etheria and the Many Moons. But we have a pug. We have a dinosaur with a unicorn horn, which is probably my favorite because it is very clearly a unicorn horn. And, of course, a robot butler.
Yes.
By the way, I'm insisting on saying robot as much as possible.
Yes.
Because it's Czech.
Yes. And I was actually...
right, I knew that! Holy shit.
Actually going to bring up the origin of the word robot.
Please fucking do that. I am overjoyed that you're going to do that.
It's from a play called Rossum's Universal Robots. And it is...
From what year?
From 1921.
So that's exactly 100 years ago.
Yep.
The first use of the word robot.
Robot.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's like right around the same time that Metropolis was released too. So there's this kind of zeitgeisty moment about, you know, once again, this is also about, you know, a factory where people make artificial people, and then they make the mistake that the robots, you know, can
think on their own, perhaps.
Yeah,
something
so they're
like
actually
that.
so they don't make them. So in RUR, they're actually more like cybernetic organisms because they make them from organic matter. Wackiness ensues. People mistake humans for robots and vice versa. There's a robot rebellion.
There's always a robot rebellion.
They're robots. They just rebel. That happens.
And of course, like any good robot story, like The Terminator or this one, it leads to the extinction of the human race.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that's how this story ends.
Well, we'll get there. There's only been there's what is it, 12 stories ever told? And
yes.
There's only one robot story ever told, so.
Yes, Robot Uprising, that's the story.
Robot Uprising, so.
Fabulous. So let's move along to when the little robot guy gets to Entrapta's lab, bringing her tiny snack and her delicious fizzy beverage. And we see her for the first time.
Sweet baby Entrapta's just sitting there doing some science.
With the thing they love to do, these writers, and Noelle too, every time they introduce someone new, there's a moment of foreboding. You're like, oh my God, is this person evil? Look at that evil metal face with the red eyes. And then she pops it up like, oh, it was just a safety mask because she's metalworking. She's a cute little princess.
That safety mask is going to become so important to the character design.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It goes up and down, and it works as a metaphor on so many levels.
Very much.
Sweet baby Entrapta. She's doing a heckin' science with her brilliant prehensile hair. She's looking in her finest princess gear is stained overalls, protective arm gear, gloves.
And headgear. Yep.
And her hair.
I love her hair. Her hair is also very, very important to her character and, layers of symbolism.
Yeah.
One of the running themes throughout the episode is understandings and wieldings of power, whether it's conscious or subconscious, and what
or electrical
or energetic, as we see with magic, and what the consequences are of being aware of your power, being unaware of your power, wielding unaware power, and wielding aware power. And we're going to see that with how Adora and She-Ra wield power in this, how Glimmer wields power, and later how Bo, the Everyman, and the crew of Everymen rise up and, they had nothing to lose but their chains. So we see it, we get our intro with Entrapta. She's reading into her log. We see the sad screen as the red organic vine veiny roots take over the metallic.
Take over the lab and the tech, the heart of the technology, the whole system that she has, right? This evil root explodes and takes over. But before that even happens, she does tell us some exposition that she's never had this much intact First One's code before, and if she can successfully translate it, it could hold the secrets of the First One.
Bum, bum, bum.
But this is not how she planned. And then we have a quick beat where you see Drill from the outside. There's a big boom, and then that handy little castle alarm bell goes off. I bet every castle now wishes it had a castle alarm bell.
I mean, they probably do now. Can we notice something else about making ancient and modern technology truly compatible and the danger in that?
Let's do it!
So, people think about Entrapta as a viewer surrogate if you're neurodivergent, and as robosexual, and as a maker, and as a lot of things, but thinking about this episode in particular, where what she's doing is not like trying to engineer a spacecraft, but trying to make ancient and modern technology compatible.
Mm-hmm.
It's super meta, because if you know Noelle Stevenson, what you are doing is you've been handed some obsolete but very powerful tech, which is called
where this is going.
She-Ra, the Princess of Power from the 80s.
Yep.
And you have been tasked, or you have tasked yourself, with making the ancient animation from the 80s of this cheeseball thing compatible with modern animation and modern understandings of what kind of story you, Noelle Stevenson, would like to tell. And if it works, you're going to be awesome. And if it doesn't work, the ancient tech and the responsibility of running She-Ra will take over your brain and everything around you. So this is a super meta moment about what it means to be a showrunner.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah,
damn.
That's a great metaphor. I hadn't even thought about that.
That meta interpretation is brilliant. I love that.
It is.
I was going to dig into what technology is in modern Etheria versus what ancient is. us as viewers, us as people consuming a text, are going into a text with our own internal assumptions that ancient technology is not as advanced as modern technology. So first, that is flipped here on She-Ra, in that the ancient technology is more advanced than the modern
we were not
technology.
We were not begun by some ancient mysterious civilization that gave us all of our tech and then disappeared. Who are clearly aliens. I mean, come on. Ancient people who landed with all this ancient tech and then disappeared. Of course they're aliens.
Totally. But I don't think that that's entirely the interpretation that we need to be working with here. The way that we should be approaching this conversation is that the modern Ethereans are using a different set for technology. So just to kind of define our terms, technology itself is, according to the Wikipedia, is the sum of techniques, skills, methods, and processes used in production of goods or services or in the accomplishment of objectives. Magic is the technology of Etheria.
Yes.
So magic is the technology of Etheria, but it's not the only technology on Etheria.
Correct.
Yes. Well put.
We're going to learn that there are 3 kinds of technology, or techne, if you want to use the Greek. One is magic, which draws in some way on what Etheria is.
Yeah, I have that as energetic manipulation.
Yeah. One is First One's tech, which does stuff, and we don't know why, but it's certainly very advanced, and we don't know, no one alive knows how to work it.
So I do have a theory on what that is, but I want to hear your third one.
Okay. And one is the thing that Entrapta does and talks about constantly and loves doing, which is the same thing as, it turns out, that the Horde does and that runs Horde stuff, and which probably they use some of it in Bright Moon for, like, the plumbing, but they don't really talk about it. It's not interesting to them. And that
Except for Bo.
And that is what we understand, on our Earth, as viewers, understand to be technology, which is its machines.
Yes.
It started before a certain period of time, humans didn't have it. We understand it to be alienated from what we call nature.
Yep.
And either we're really into it in a way that might be irresponsible, or we're scared of it in a way that might be anti-intellectual. And if we're going to go in that direction on this episode, I want to talk about Ursula Franklin.
Yes, please.
Okay. So my friend Deb Chatra, who is a terrific presence on the internet and engineering teacher, and who's currently writing a book about infrastructure and why we should all care about it, introduced me a few years ago to this Canadian metallurgist and philosopher of science called Ursula Franklin, who is also an anti-war person. And she wrote a book called The Real Life of Technology, about what technology is and what engineering is, and how to understand why we sometimes feel that technology is terrible and why we sometimes love it, and how to think about it. Mm-hmm. And one of her main distinctions that Ursula Franklin makes is between what she calls holistic technology, which you yourself use to do stuff, and prescriptive technology, which makes other people do stuff. And holistic technology goes with craft work, and it goes with work that you can't scale up.
Yeah, it's kind of micro and macro.
Yeah, and prescriptive technology goes with work that you can scale up and can be used directly to control people, like nanny cams or something, or can be used to build assembly lines or armies. And one of the things that we're going to see with Entrapta is, when is her technology holistic and when is it prescriptive? That is, when is it going to be used to control others?
Oh.
That's a very interesting question.
And there are kind of 2 points where that's brought up. There's one in the episode here where Glimmer literally wants her to be a prescriptive technologist, right? She's like, Glimmer literally says she can build weapons for us. Mm-hmm. And then once again in the Horde, when she makes the choice to do so.
Yeah.
So we have some credits.
Credits. This is the only time we see Catra.
Yeah.
In this whole episode.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. The only time we see Catra in this episode is the credits. That's true.
We don't see the Horde at all. There's the Hordes.
There's no Horde in this episode. It's very strange. Part of the
There's
strangeness. No Lonnie, no Catra.
Boo. Boo.
as much as I love Catra, and I do love Catra, Entrapta has her own space, and we're going to figure out how that space works on this episode, and how queer, not just how queer she is, but how she is queer.
Yes.
Let's check in on Glimmer and Adora and Bo.
Yes. We haven't checked in on them for a while.
There's been no reports of the Horde in this area, says Adora.
Yep, so these guys are walking on the road to drill. Doot, 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 doot. And Glimmer is excitedly telling Adora how Entrapta will be such a catch for the rebellion. And P.S., Queen Mom is going to be so impressed. And at this point, I am leaning more towards your overall philosophy about Glimmer, Meth, which is
Thank you.
okay, we get it. Like, yeah, your mom's going to be impressed, but like maybe first priority should be like, we are fighting a huge war here for the survival of humanity. Not like, I gotta impress my mom.
Yo, I'm just saying.
That's who Glimmer is right now. She'll grow and change, she'll have to, but that's who Glimmer is right now.
Yes, she will. She's still very young.
She got to impress her mom. And Bo is like in fanboy heaven.
Yeah,
I love
so
how
maybe we can let Bo and Meth through Bo tell us why Entrapta is such an important catch for the rebellion.
Well, she's a brilliant inventor, and she rehabs the old tech left by the first ones, and she makes robots.
Robots!
And she's also, she's a big deal in the Ethereum maker community, which, of course, Bo, our everyman, our heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't have superpowers, but I have tech like Sokka from Avatar.
Yes.
Dabbles in gadgetry himself.
Yes.
So, and then he pulls out his tiny bow.
Yes. And the tiny arrow that explodes into little streamers. And the little, he picks out his jazz hands. Eee!
We get his jazz hands and his glimmery, glamoury ivy balls like we got from Seahawk.
It's so adorable. I want to squeeze him.
I love Bo Crush.
But Adora and Glimmer are not giving him the respect he deserves in that moment.
No, they are not. Because this episode, and they are laying it out in here when Adora and Glimmer and Bo are talking, that this episode is about how to wield and who wields power.
And it's also about not everything can be accomplished by whipping out your magic dong.
Yeah, exactly. Your magic, your dong, or your magic dong.
Yeah, any of those three. Also, there's a very important tiny moment that we cannot overlook before we move on. While Glimmer and Adora are poo-pooing Bo's tiny adorable bow and arrow, he's like, well, here's some of my other inventions. I made some more trick arrows. He shows them all his trick arrows, including Sonic Arrow.
Sonic Arrow.
Chekhov's Sonic Arrow.
Which Glimmer and Adora belittle and laugh at, so it's going to be critical by the end.
Yeah, it's Chekhov's Sonic Arrow.
Yes.
Yeah. I bet Entrapta will like my arrows.
Yes, she will.
And I like how this is also, they go right into, Adora's being a jerk about it because she's acting like such a jerk jock because she's like, hey, your arrow's stupid. Hold on, I gotta smash something.
Yep.
Which is like, more 5 shadowing about like, haha, your power is dumb. I'm gonna use my dumb power. And then
just as he's explaining to her that there's a rock slide and they have to be super quiet.
Yep, I have here the 2 extremely important sentences in this episode are, she whips out her magic dong and clears the rock slide, and she's like, I'm getting the hang of this. And Bo said, that was incredibly dangerous. What's the big deal? It worked.
Yes, those are very important sentences for this episode.
That is this episode in 2 sentences.
Yes, that was my one, and I look forward to hearing yours, both of yours. That was my one gayest moment, we all know that we all know, nomination. Dumb lesbian jock Adora is just gonna blast through everything with her magic dong. Hold my beer, I got this. Boom, rocks. I shall smash them. I shall smash all the rocks.
I have hold my beer, I got this as well.
Yes.
It's not so much Daddy Adora, but it's definitely Dumb Jock Adora.
It's Dumb Jock Adora.
Oh no, the castle's distress beacon has been activated, and somehow they all recognize that, even though no other castle has ever had a distress beacon, but I guess it's a universal language.
Well, wait, they could all have distress beacons, we've just never seen them activated before.
True.
Could be. You could be right. So, of course, as soon as they see that something is amiss, She-Ra and Glimmer run in head first, and Bo is like, wait, be careful. But of course, nobody is listening. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Entrapta has traps. It's in the name.
Oh my goodness, you are right. Booby traps! But She-Ra and Glimmer do run in head first and get separated from Bo because they're so overeager. And then, there is an unpleasant high-pitched sound. An electronic-y feedback kind of sound that only She-Ra can hear.
Yeah.
and she does not like it.
No, it starts to give her a headache, makes her feel a little bit weird.
And she says, this place feels wrong. But then it passes quickly, and she immediately says it was nothing. So we move on to the castle interior. We just saw them run in. Like, it was sort of like implied. They just kind of walked right in. And we can see someone watching them, like, from behind the shadows. And, you know, who knows? Is this someone lying in wait to attack them? But it turns out just to be, you know, somebody who's hiding. And, oh yeah, so they're just hanging around yelling for Entrapta in the courtyard because what could happen, right? That's fine. In an ominous, empty courtyard.
And, of course, Adora is like, it's the Horde, isn't it?
Yes, because she's expecting the Horde always.
She's always expecting the Horde, so.
Yeah, there's a really cute part where there's, like, a robot version of Thing from the Addams Family, and it, like, crawls up Glimmer's leg. But then it's like it didn't, but then it's like it did. I'm not sure if it did. But then it really does for sure, and then she chucks it away. And then, of course, I had to look this fun fact up. Thing's proper full name on the internet is credited as Thing T Thing, which I just thought was beyond adorable. So I had to say it.
That's incredible.
Thank you, Meth.
I love that knowledge.
Yes, I thought you might.
I do.
That's the kind of cool shit that we zero in on here at Hey Adora.
That's the kind of knowledge, the only kind of knowledge I care about.
Yes, and that's when Bo finally catches up with them, being his adorable self. And he says they need to be careful.
For now.
Because Entrapta has traps all over her castle. Ooh, they're supposed to be really cool.
Yeah.
Oh.
This is where the cute little green guy, who may or may not be a servant or may not be a townsperson, pops his head up out of the little pothole in the square and says, they're coming, get out of the square. But, you know, he doesn't say who's coming. More booms, boom, boom, boom. Time to run. And that's where they run into the first evil robot who totally looks like a zombie.
Yup.
And again, the episode keeps fainting towards looking like horror because the plot structure is like horror, but it doesn't look like horror. And it doesn't behave like horror, and it keeps suggesting it's going to tell you that technology is dangerous per se, or that power is dangerous per se, and they're not, and it's not, and it's designed to flirt with that wrong message and then not give it.
Right, because it's about the wielding of it.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is the moment that Glimmer makes the face, the most fantastic face, after they kill the evil zombie robot. She makes this face when Shear's getting ready to smash down the door with her sword. The greediest little gremlin face that's like the bug eyes. Like, oh yes, smash it. Yes, smash it. Like, she is losing her entire mind.
Oh my god.
Just because she wants to see something get smashed. And I love it.
Could you blame her?
No, she is horny for violence. That's what I have in my notes.
Glimmer is indeed horny for violence.
As she often is.
Oh, definitely.
Too bad Bo took his eyes off them for 2 seconds.
They are separated.
Yes, he gets pulled away by mysterious hands. They fall down a chute.
Down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, so now we have this hilarious shtick of, you know, teleporting might seem like a perfect power, but if you don't know where you are, then maybe you don't know where you're teleporting. And it's just a few moments of like, where are we? Oh my god, not here, not there. Oh my god, okay.
So that is 100% Nightcrawler.
I was just going to say that.
Same joke. I got to that point and I was like, but they didn't go Banff. Why didn't they go Banff? You have to go Banff to land the joke.
I literally had that written down. I'm like, no one bamfs, and this is what happens when Nightcrawler tries to, you know, teleport blindly.
Yeah.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I mean, in fact, if you are an adult mutant and you've been doing this for a while, the way to do this is to teleport down to the ground in short jumps so that you break your own fall.
That's true.
Which is exhausting, but you can do it. But it's also where we see that Glimmer has Nightcrawler's power set, but is not an adult and hasn't been practicing with these powers for very long. And, like, she is trying her best, but she does not know how to do this.
It's true. She is not a fully grown teleporter.
She needs a danger room.
She does, and she also doesn't have, she only has a few teleports in her spell slots, too. Like, she's not unlimited.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. She has to recharge her powers.
Yeah.
But this is also, so now this is the part where we see, okay, so Adora's Smashy Smash didn't work.
Yeah.
Glimmer's Glittery Glitter Teleport didn't work.
Bamf,
True.
bamf.
Both
Glitter's
true.
Bamfs didn't work. So, oh man, these people who are so powerful, their powers are not going to be working here to fix our issues.
It's true.
Maybe we can meet another person and their powers will fix this issue.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we meet the person we're about to meet, you guys?
Princesses!
Ominous form approaches. We have
In the dark.
With the
red eyes. Yes, from the welding mask.
Yeah.
And we're braced for another fight.
Uh-huh.
Princesses! I am saved! Which is such a great line.
Yeah, I love that. She's saved by princesses, not princesses that are being saved. It's
exactly.
It's a great little...
Exactly. And the fact that that's a cultural expectation that's set up for her.
Yep.
If you see princesses, you're saved.
Yep, it's a lovely subversion. I love it.
Love it.
So, the matter-of-factness with which Entrapta treats life-threatening mechanical and electronic malfunctions is lovely.
Yes.
At least at this point, she has no doubt that this malfunction, this software glitch, will be fixed.
Yep.
Because she's always been able to fix software and hardware problems before, even when they become deadly.
Yep. And I don't think that this is a hubris part.
No, it's based on her experience fixing things.
Exactly. It's very much based in reality. If this was Glimmer, I would say that this would skew towards hubris, because Glimmer would just be like, no, I've never done this before, but of course I can do it. Whereas with Entrapta, the data suggests that yes, I have been able to do this in the past. All data,
she's very methodical.
All data suggests that I can. Ergo, I shall be able to do this.
She basically has a help desk log where every time something becomes a teensy bit deadly, you log it. And then you go in and you find the bug and you write the code, or you pull out the chip and you're fine.
Absolutely true.
This, however, is first one's tech. So.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yes. And she's explicitly experimenting with it. It's not something that she's familiar with.
Right. And she did say at the beginning that she's never found anything with this much intact first one's code before. So this is a whole new ballgame for her.
Yep.
Also, I have a totally unrelated note here about her hair. I really love the way Entrapta's hair is such a core part of how she moves and how she takes up space.
Yes.
I also thought, I don't know if this is intended or not, I kind of think it is, that she has pink eyes like a lab rat.
Oh, good call. I did not see that at all.
Also, I mean, I think doing all of the legwork, so to speak, with her hair allows her to actually do the mechanical work with her hands. So her hands are always free. She's always able to do the things to build with her hands.
She doesn't have to worry about mundane tasks with her hands.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in another room.
Oh, yeah. The baker people. The bakery staff.
Yes. Kitchen staff.
They don't know why the robots have gone berserk. They just make food and tiny kawaii food and fizzy beverages because that is all Entrapta eats and drinks.
They really are fond of the Mr. X in the writer's room, where, Bo is struggling, and as far as we know, these people have captured him, right? He's struggling to get free, and they're these three very meek, adorable people. Please, sir, keep your voice down, because the robots are attracted to noise. So we learn that right away.
Mm-hmm. Another horror moment.
Yeah.
Right, and he's taking this, and he's like, oh, okay, so what's up then? Why is this happening? And, they're establishing their character when they say, we don't know. We're just the kitchen staff. Like, they're terrified. And we get to see them. That's who they are. And that's established right away.
Yep. And they say they've socked away enough food to last for months.
It's all tiny, but still, But so they're content to just hide there for months if necessary, as they have said. And Bo says they can do something, and in fact, they have to do something.
Bo shows that he is also a technological person. He built a tracker pad. It tracks energy signatures. So Bo is also able to use technology to engage with magic, not in the same way as the first ones.
That's true. And they never talk about that aspect of him on this episode. They only talk about him as being a master archer.
Right.
But you're right.
Yep. And so they're like, are those little dot thingies your friends? And Bo is like, no.
Gonna go with no. And he assumes action position.
Yep.
More Entrapta.
Yes, more Entrapta. It's time for more Entrapta. Entrapta is leading Shira and Glimmer through the castle, telling them casually that they're lucky she found them because she designed the castle as a labyrinth, as we have discussed, and she's the only one who can navigate it as she walks into a column.
And she didn't realize that she was designing a trap. Entrapta keeps doing things that make her look like an evil genius, but she's actually just someone who does science.
Yes.
She's never out to harm people.
Yep, and then we see that Entrapta has her own kind of version of Tracker Pad, too. And it is surrounded...
But it's unfortunately kind of evil right now.
Yep, and it is infected with...
With evil.
With red organic veiny shapes, and there's a frowny face.
Yes. About that, why did you build killer robots?
You're abnormally tall.
Yes.
So, yeah, you're abnormal at all. Hello, I like your sword. It's first one's tech, right? Can I touch it? Gayest moment. I am nominating that as a gayest moment.
Yes.
We all know that you know that I know that we know. I'm going to continuously mess that up, but I feel like it's fun. It is fun. It is fun. We all know.
Yes.
And it's just like, oh my. As Jenny has mentioned many times before on this podcast, Adora's very genderqueer sword is both a sword, which is a phallic object, and has the glowing, flowering clitoris.
And labia. Don't forget that labia. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of energy going on there.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
We have two different models of queerness. One that is magic, and another that is logical and rationalist and tech-based and amusingly overt if you're not used to being around this kind of neurodiversity. Hello, I like your sword.
Can I touch it?
My third gayest moment comes a few lines after this, where the giant robot goes after everyone and Entrapta just says, "Isn't it adorable?"
Yeah.
And they're scared because it's a new thing for them. And if Entrapta were a different character in the same plot, you'd think she was really trying to hurt them. But Entrapta can't imagine that her tech would be scary or harmful to anyone else because it's just so darn cute and fun if you're her.
Right.
She's so sweet and kind and wants people to like the things that she likes and assumes they will. And she doesn't quite understand, partly because she's grown up in drill with some privilege, just how unusual her way of looking at the world is.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
But she does value it. She thinks it's great, which is the reverse of a lot of real life struggles by people on the spectrum who sort of don't realize, oh, you're weird, but you're valuable. You have a thing to contribute. The thing you do, no one else can do.
That's true. And it's also the flip of, the rest of the Princess Alliance and the Rebellion crew. They value her for what she can provide to them and what she can do for them, but they don't value her differences. They find her, a nuisance and something that they have to deal with in order to get the prize, which is what she can do for them. And that's shown from Adora's very first reaction to her when Adora or Glimmer say, "Why did you build evil robots?" And Entrapta's first response is to ignore the question completely and say, "Hello, you're abnormally tall. Your sword is first one's tech, right? Can I touch it?" And Adora immediately reacts like someone who is just annoyed and put off. She crouches back in this somewhat defensive position and she says, "Hi, yes, and no, not right now." She's like, what the fuck? What the fuck is with this person? Get your shit out of my way. We've got shit to do. Like, what?
Yeah.
She's not interested in anything Entrapta has to offer other than, will you please build us some shit and shut up and be normal.
That's right. She has a lot to learn. She's such a flawed heroine at this point.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is the perfect segue to jump into parts of our discussion with Mishy Kats. According to Mishy's bio, they are a semi-professional do-gooder, amateur chef, and cat mom. They own too many lipsticks and overthink everything. We had a chance to sit down with Mishy to discuss all things Entrapta.
We get introduced to her, and it kind of feels like, the other princes are like, she's good at these things, I guess we should meet up with her. And we get to her castle, and, it's not as pretty, I guess, as others. And there's this whole, labyrinth to get through. And the first time we're introduced to her, has 3 people in her work who are humans and terrified. And we get introduced to her as this dark palace with all these mazes. But yet we see her, and she's so bubbly. And she's tiny food and fizzy drinks. How exciting. And we see she's a lot more bubbly than her space kind of gives us a perception of, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
no, it totally makes sense, yeah.
She starts explaining to them sort of her, robots and how excited she is. And I find it interesting rewatching it. You know, she describes what her robots do to her, for her. And, you know, and it seems like they're not just company for her. She goes on to say, like, they help me with basic hygiene and stuff. And I thought that was really interesting because she didn't seem to, like, resent that or anything. She was really excited that she had all these companions that help her with things. I don't know, that's how we get introduced to her, and I just thought that was really lovely. That it's both companionship and need and accessibility for her.
Yes. Absolutely.
So I'm just going to say, because it's something that really bothered me, is at the end we sort of have, you know, they call on her to apologize. And I'm going way deep, but that kind of really did bother me. And it felt like a lot of times they want her to apologize for existing. Or, you know, they apologize for, like, her robots are a nuisance. Her hyper-focusedness is a nuisance. And why can't she just, you know, get with the program? And like, she shows up to the ball not being dressed as, like, the others. And she just always seems like, unless they need her, to be in the way. That's how I took it. I mean, maybe not everyone. But I also took it as this great, she's, you know, she's very technologically, like, that's her special interest. But she has a femininity about her. And her hair is also a way for her to get around and do things. And that's also accessibility. And as a, you know, queer, femme, and disabled person, like, it's really nice to see all that. And it's not put so obviously out there. You really have to pay attention to see it. I think the first time around I missed her comment about the robots help her with basic hygiene and things. So, but the second time watching, I was like, wow. Yeah, and every time you rewatch it, you see something more. But I did recall seeing it the second time and noticing that feeling that I got. Like, she wasn't wanted exactly there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that's part of why she ended up in the fright zone. It wasn't just because of the misunderstanding, like, well, they thought she was dead, and if they hadn't thought that, they never would have left. But I definitely agree with you that there is always a sense that when she wasn't specifically doing something that was useful to them, just having her around was something that they were putting up with rather than fully embracing.
Absolutely. Like, the word would be putting up with.
Yeah.
And, like, I have to think, I mean, I guess I'm assigning way too much, you know, overthinking to it. But, you know, she gets left at the, you know, the fright zone. But they see all the technology that's coming out there. Wouldn't they worry? And wouldn't they fought harder for her to come out? They can make sure she's actually left. Like, it just seems a little bit like she was like an afterthought. And I know, like, we talked about it in Perfumers, you know, is sad about it. Beau is sad about it. But they almost kind of just carry on. And, you know, I feel like we watch this show and we get a lot of feelings from it. You know, I'm sure a lot of people start off really disliking Catra, even maybe still dislike her, regardless of anything, and think she's unredeemable, rather than think much more deeper about it. And I feel like the same thing kind of applies to Entrapta. So they see her joining the Horde, and they think she's automatically bad, and that she's evil, and she betrayed them. And, you know, I don't think that's true. I think that, you know, she was stuck there and she's like, oh, I could fix this technology. So she just fixes it. She doesn't really care what's going on around her because she's focused on the thing that she needs to do.
Right.
Or that she, you know, feels comfortable. I think it's so much duality in it. As I said, I've had a really, really, really rough time. And I've been in a program and I've been exploring a lot of my trauma. And rewatching it, just kind of, I felt for her so much. Like, it made me cry because I can see... And maybe I'm putting my perception onto it. But I feel like...
Well, everybody does.
Well, sure.
You're here because we want your point of view.
Absolutely.
I know for my special interests and my trauma, which often, you know, we can't just separate pieces of our brain. It doesn't work that way. We can't organize them perfectly. Like, I have mental
It would be
illness.
awesome if we could.
Oh my god, yes. And sometimes, you know, you're so used to the criticism, you start wanting to please people.
Right.
And I think Entrapta really falls into the people pleasing. She knows that, like, the tech is her thing, so she tries to please and get everyone to like her by fixing things.
Yeah, I mean, she's explicitly said that. She's like, well, I'm useful, you know?
Yeah, exactly. She is useful. That's, like, the only way she kind of sees herself. Until, like, to be honest, like, yes, Beau is really nice to her, but I think until Hordak, nobody has treated her like another human. Nobody has treated her, like, everyone has seen her as broken, and he's broken. And together they're like, maybe we're okay. Maybe
that's true.
We can fix each other that's broken. And she literally fixes him.
Yeah.
She quite literally fixes him. And she
That's
doesn't
true.
fix him in the traditional sense. Like, she doesn't fix him to be like the other Hordads. She fixes him the way he is. And if we remember, she also fixes him again when he's not, normal Hordak. Like, the wrong normal Hordak, whatever you want
That's
to call it.
right.
Yeah.
Can we talk about color?
Yes, please.
I do poetry, which is all words, and comics, which has colorists. And it's easy when you're talking comics to talk line art and dialogue and ignore the colors. And color is so important here also because not only are the green naturey signals that we're on a non-horde dominated part of Etheria absent. I think this is the first time we've had dark interior, like non-naturey colors without blues and greens, except in horde scenes. And that happens throughout. But in this scene in particular, everything is lavender. Everything is in Entrapta's colors because it's her domain. That tells us both how gay everything is and that this is Entrapta's space, and she's been almost, not literally, but almost literally living inside her head in a space of her own creation. And she's going to need to learn how to get outside that space to be a good friend and an effective fighter and maybe a good romantic partner for someone.
Yeah. Lavender has historically, I think since probably the early Victorian era, been understood as the color of queerness. So it's been a color code. The Lavender Menace, for example, were a group of lesbian feminists.
Oh, yes.
Yep, group of lesbian feminists in the early 70s who were kind of fighting against the anti-lesbianism that was prevalent in mainstream feminism. So the fact that everything here is coded lavender is a pretty friggin' queer moment.
Oh, yes. All the way back to Victorian era, you say?
Yeah.
That is some wild shit.
If you are a queer historian or a queer history buff, please email us at heyadoracast@gmail.com and correct me.
I would love to know that.
Yeah, certainly like mid to late Victorian, but I do believe it is early Victorian coding.
Oh, yeah. But one important point before we get so swept up in all these awesome, cool details of what make Entrapta, which are amazing, a couple of small plot points that we don't want to miss is that she does eventually answer the question after they get over the "you're abnormally tall" fun shenanigans. Why did you create killer robots? She does come back and say, well, they didn't start out that way. Normally, they're super helpful. Let me tell you all about my wonderful non-evil robots, which are totally not the issue right now, but they are super useful and more fun than people. And oh yeah, let me show you how I call them by clapping. And that is what brings us the killer hallway Zamboni robot.
Also a call to Chekhov's Sonic Arrow.
But also that big killer hallway Zamboni robot reminded me of Labyrinth.
Oh.
I know all y'all queer Muppet Bowie fans have seen this movie. At one point, they're running in the underground part from this big cleaning robot that takes up the whole space of the underground tunnel, and there's nowhere to run. And, it's going to crush you to death in the name of cleaning this hallway that no one's ever going to see anyway. And that's when Entrapta is running away laughing, saying, "Isn't it adorable?" But that's when shit starts to get real. Because Entrapta is so excited about what's happening. She's like, oh, it's trying to communicate. She jumps up on top of this thing because she wants to take some notes. Because, again, she's not worried about what is good or bad for her in this moment. She's just interested in the science. She jumps up to take some notes about the possible communication that is happening, and her awesome hair appendages get caught in the twisting machinations of this robot, and then Adora has to jump up to rescue her. And in doing so, her sword gets infected with the same weird organic tech disease that has infected these robots, and that's when shit really gets wild.
And this is where I wanted to point out another part of the kind of running motif through the show of when and when not to use your power and when not to be reckless with your power. And this is Adora doing, hold my beer, I got this. King of the jock lesbians, jumping in and being like, hold on, I got this. I'm gonna smash it with my smashing machine and my big smashy muscles. And that's not what you need for this. That's not how you're going to defeat this bad guy.
That's not always the way.
To be fair, it's not clear that there was another way to prevent this robot from attacking Entrapta.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she's doing what she knows. She is doing what she knows as a character. This is what she knows. And up till
now, she's never been infected
right
by an evil, robot, human, cyber organic disease before that turned her into friendly drunk Adora that will keep us amused for the rest of this episode.
Oh my goodness. Oh my god, drunk Adora.
So here we are. Glimmer gets the sword away, kapow, and then angry red kryptonite She-Ra turns back into Adora and faints in Glimmer's arms. Oh my god.
Oh my god, and we're gonna get back to drunk Adora.
We are.
Wackiness in just a little bit, but now we have moved on to Bo and the proletariat.
Yes. I was gonna say and his band of kitchen knights, but they are not quite the kitchen knights yet.
Not yet. They're
kitchen squires, really.
They're kitchen squires right now. They're learning that they have nothing to lose, but they don't know what that
right
thing
now,
to
they're
lose
still
is.
Terrified as shit.
Yeah.
And they feel like they have no tools with which to assert themselves in this situation. And robots are breaking down their fucking door. Yeah, so Bo's making some traps.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's the clever inventor guy.
Yep, the regular guy who knows technology does not have magical powers.
Yes, but he has a level head.
And heart.
He's got some traps going, and the kitchen staff are still really not sure about this, but he's got enough confidence and commanderyness in him that they are willing to follow his lead.
Mm-hmm.
So when Bo says go, they go.
Yep.
They've got a trap strung up, they open the door, and huzzah, boom, boom, boom. Robot down. 3 bots down in 1 second, basically. But then there's one more left, and he can't take it down because he only has Sonic Arrow left.
It'll draw more bots.
And he explains he can't use it because it'll draw more bots.
I almost want that to be a joke about the animation team, who at this point, the last thing they want to do is draw more bots.
No, what do you think about drawing more bots?
Yeah.
Yes. Nice.
Yeah.
There's an important ending of this scene because since Bo can't finish them all off himself, and he's like, oh no, what's gonna happen? It is the most timid and squeaky of those 3 kitchen staff people, the little blue-haired person, who ends up inadvertently dusting the last bot because she opens the cabinet door that she's hiding inside, but it's made of some kind of very heavy metal. She opens it quite forcefully. Boom! Bot down. P.S. These bots are pretty easy to take out. It's like 1 arrow, a squirt of icing, a squirt of fizzy, delicious beverage, and they just short out immediately. So the bot goes down. She's like, is it over? Did we win? And she looks down at the bot and she says, I did that? Hey! I did that! And again, it's like with Adora when she first looked at the She-Ra etching on the wall back in the early episodes in the She-Ra temple. She said, that's me.
Yep.
That sudden realization that I have power.
You are more powerful than you think you are. Yep.
So, and then now that they have begun to be empowered, now they can go along. Let's find my friends.
And we get Entrapta Glimmer interactions, which I love, partly because they're really different. They're characters who have really different struggles. And it's so much fun to watch them connect here.
Mm-hmm.
Glimmer sees everything that can be a person as a person. And Entrapta, who we will learn later is pretty good at the robot rights cause, at this point thinks that you just need to shut down malfunctioning systems, even if they're persons.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
When Glimmer says you're not taking her apart, she's a person, that's the kind of thing you'd expect Entrapta to say about Emily, or possibly about one of the Hordaks. But Glimmer is saying that about Adora, who she appears to believe, with reason, is kind of an animatronic, especially lifelike robot. After all, she has tech powers.
Right, and she was infected.
Yeah.
That's true. The tall one seems to be infected too. She got less tall.
How does that work? And Entrapta's first question about any new situation is this lovely, pure research question: how does it work? Adora's first question is, how do I fight it? And I think Beau's first question is, what do you need?
Yep. And Glimmer's first question is, how can it serve us?
Oh, God, you're right.
Yep. One big yay happy moment for Glimmer is when she says, she's not an it, she's my friend.
Exactly.
Because she has been treating, first of all, Adora and She-Ra as separate things, not personalizing She-Ra, just seeing She-Ra as a weapon. So this is another instance of Glimmer being like, no, actually, She-Ra isn't just a weapon. She-Ra is part of Adora, and Adora is my friend.
The idea that She-Ra is really part of Adora is something that we're going to see Adora learn much, much later.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that they all have to reckon with throughout the whole series.
Yeah.
After Glimmer puts her foot down and says, you're not taking her apart, she's a person, that's when Entrapta explains that she's been experimenting with a disc recovered from a mine and drill. Drill, even though it's not spelled, it's spelled D-R-Y-L. It's a place where people drill. It's a mining community.
Yeah.
It's not natural and connected to the earth in a holistic way as the other kingdoms are. This is a human-powered operation.
It's Irontown from Princess Mononoke.
Right, exactly. So they found this disc recovered from a mine and drill with more intact First One's code than anything she's ever seen before. But it seems to be having a bad reaction with the First One's tech that powers her bots. It infected them with some kind of virus, and that computer tech virus seems to have also infected She-Ra.
Yep. And one thing that I want to mention here is I have in my notes, when Glimmer says, you're not taking her apart, she's a person. Glimmer, I think this is when Glimmer pulls a knife, and Glimmer shows that she is your tiny stabby friend. We all have that stabby friend.
Glimmer will defend Adora against the threat of disassembly.
Yes.
I want to go back a little bit to when is a person not a person, when is a person a tool, when is a robot a person. Because any discourse around Entrapta is going to hit those questions, and one of them is a good and evil question. One of the most concise definitions of evil that I've seen and believed is treating persons as tools. And I think this has even come up on this podcast with the two of you before. Entrapta needs to learn, and Glimmer needs to learn, and they're learning together, yay, that people aren't tools, that people are people. At the same time, Entrapta, because she's so tech-based and so rationalist and has such a fuzzy or non-existent boundary between people and not people to begin with, we're going to learn later that the same tendency she had early on to treat people as things is going to allow her to treat putative things as people, which is going to super help them.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So we establish Entrapta's postulation that She-Ra was infected with the virus through her sword because her sword is First One's tech, and this virus has infected all of her First One's tech because it had a bad interaction between the disk that she found and all the existing First One's tech that runs her computers. So that seems to be the situation. And so then Glimmer says, okay, so if you destroy the disc, will all this shit go back to normal? And Entrapta first doesn't want to do that. She says, but the experiment's not over. And this is still in the hallway with the remains of the destroyed Zamboni bot. And Glimmer points out that this experiment, pretty safe to say, is a failure. And then you pant, all of a sudden the shot zooms out, so you really see everything, what a hot damn mess it is. And Entrapta says, but what if it's not? And then she looks around again and says, no, it's a failure.
That is, we should not underrate the power, the resilience, the bond, the gayness required for Entrapta to realize that she needs to pull the plug on this very high-stakes experiment.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It's so hard to admit that your experiment is a failure, but with Glimmer, all things are possible.
That's true. So finally we agree on a course of action, and that's when our friend drunk Adora wakes up.
Yay!
And it's time for all the fun.
Okay, so first of all, drunk Adora, sorority girl drunk, right?
Yes.
Definitely a Jello shots drunk. Hey guys, I love you. You're the best. She's very physical, clingy drunk, because that's what Adora is, right? Adora is a very physical creature.
That is totally true.
I want to talk just quickly, because I think it's funny, about what everybody else in Etheria would be like when they drunk. All right, so first we're going to go to Catra, because we haven't talked about Catra, because Catra's not in this episode.
It's true.
But Sweet Baby Catra is emo drunk. Sweet Baby Catra is emo drunk. And it's just so pining and so sad, because Sweet Baby Catra is that pining, sad, emo lesbian underneath it all.
Don't you think she'd start out, like, really combative, like,
no,
wanting to beat everybody at pool, and then when she's too drunk to play pool, then she'd want to, like, knock you out with the pool stick, and then she'd get sad and be like, oh, none of this even matters. Why doesn't Adora want me?
I can definitely see it being like a competitive thing, but I don't see her getting violent.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that Catra, ironically, has a better sense of when actual violence is warranted and when it is unwarranted than Adora does.
That's true.
I agree.
That's true.
And a much better one I'm going to move into than Glimmer, because Glimmer will fight your ass.
That's true.
I actually want to say that Glimmer does get whiskey drunk, and she's gonna fuck you up. But not like starting a fight, but like, are you looking at my friend?
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Absolutely.
I think that's right. And Bo is so tired of being the designated driver, because he's always the designated driver.
Yep. And when he does get to drink, he's a hugger.
Oh, yeah.
I love you guys. You guys are my best friends. But not like Adora, who's a mess.
Yeah.
What do we think about drunk Mermista?
I was thinking about that. And I was thinking that, so two things. One, if Mermista does drink, because I kind of see her smoking weed with Perfuma.
Oh, I totally do.
That's right.
But if she does drink, she's definitely wine drunk, and she's definitely red wine drunk. And I think she just gets quiet.
I think that's right.
Aw.
I think that's right.
But so I don't love the idea of Mermista just sitting quietly. So what do we think she'd be like when she's smoking weed with Perfuma then?
I think she would actually be giggly. I think she'd be
yeah. There we go.
She'd be a giggly pothead. Perfuma doesn't drink. Perfuma smokes mad weed, as established. I believe it's canon because that's what Party Kale is.
Oh, yeah. I agree. I think Mermista would overshare with Perfuma.
Yeah.
And have, like, no aloofness whatsoever. She'd be totally enthusiastic about everything she has to say.
Totally.
Oh my god, Perfuma, can I tell you how awesome Seahawk is in bed?
Totally.
He does this thing.
Yeah.
Seahawk is no different. He just lights shit on fire.
Yeah, hi. I just want to weigh in on the conversation here.
Please do, Ashley.
Hell yeah! This is our producer, Ashley, who's weighing in, by the way.
Okay. Well, yes, I think she drinks wine, red wine. And yes, I think she is definitely smoking weed with Perfuma. I also think that she drinks rum, like dark spiced rum, with Seahawk. And I think that she gets over lovey and just loves everyone way too much and talks way too much and like hugs all over everyone.
Oh, damn!
Yes!
Yes.
Yes.
That seems right.
Entrapta does not drink, though she does make her own alcohol to clean robot parts. However, she's super about making her own nootropes.
What is a nootrope?
Brain-enhancing drugs.
That's exactly right. She has tried acid and she's tried mushrooms because she wants to know what they do, and it was annoying. She knew that you don't do those things by yourself. PSA, do not do those kinds of drugs alone ever.
So she did them with Emily.
She did it with Scorpia.
I don't know if she did them with Scorpia during canon.
Well, because I think Scorpia would be an awesome trip partner.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
But Entrapta kept making notes, and Scorpia was like, you really need to write all of this down? And Entrapta was like, yes, it's data. This is my lab report.
Oh, yeah.
And then the next day, Entrapta looked at her data and she was like, oh, fuck.
This is all
gibberish.
That makes no sense.
Yes.
Scorpia is a wine cooler drunk. Doesn't really change that much.
Yeah, she's exactly the same, only more so.
Yep.
Frosta can just have like a shit ton of pixie sticks.
Yeah.
And she'll be off, running around, making a map of all the uncharted territories around camp while everybody else is having grown-up fun.
Yeah, exactly.
She'll be running hither and thither.
Should we return to drill?
Yes, because now Drunk Adora and Glimmer and Entrapta have to get to the lab to destroy the disc so that these wacky hijinks can eventually come to an end. So now they're running back into the labyrinth. And my favorite part of that is when, Entrapta is like leading them through her labyrinth, but, perhaps she doesn't know the way as well as she thinks she does. So they're running around and Glimmer sits Adora down for 1 second. And then while Glimmer's looking the other way, Adora pops up and runs away like Kermit the Frog in the other direction.
Yep.
But Glimmer is just sitting for 1 damn second and taking a rest, and then she reaches her arm out to grab her, and she's not there. And it's just all these trials and travails of designated driver Glimmer.
Aww.
Uh-huh. Am I getting ahead of us, or can we get to the backpack moment where it's a date?
Actually, no. I have one more gayest moment before we do that, which is Adora being wasted and just being like, clingy, clingy, clingy. And then she looks up and she's like, hi, Glimmer. And I'm like, oh, okay, Adora.
Okay.
All right, girl. And Glimmer's like, ugh, okay. We're going to deal with this later.
That is a lot of Jello shots.
That is a lot of Jello shots.
But now we're in the next scene, and Glimmer lets Entrapta know, because Entrapta did not know this, that she can teleport.
Yep.
And Entrapta is in love. Ooh, teleportation? How does that work? Tell me everything. Sure, but maybe later when we're not, facing a robot uprising. It's a date!
I have that as a gayest moment as well.
Entrapta gets so enthusiastic about everything that you can't tell when something seems romantic and when something doesn't. Entrapta has also just seen Glimmer carrying Adora.
Right.
And Glimmer is the kind of girl who carries other girls on her back whenever that's a good idea.
That's true.
And I definitely have this because there is definitely a little bit of sparkage between Entrapta and Glimmer. Now, I do believe that it is at this point a tiny bit one-sided, but Entrapta is definitely like, oh, okay, cool, yeah.
Yes.
It's a date. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, can I skip back for a second? There was a couple of beats that we skipped before we got to Glimmer revealing her teleportation to Entrapta. When they first got to the lab, for, a couple of minutes they were looking for it. And then Entrapta says, oh, we're here. I mean, of course we're here. We were never lost. And then before Glimmer has to reveal that she can teleport, Entrapta tries to get them in the normal way, which is by putting in her entry code. And then she gets spectacularly electrocuted.
Yeah.
And we see her skeleton. And Adora, transfixed drunk Adora reaches up her little finger. And then Glimmer, pushes her hand back down so she does not also get electrocuted. And then Entrapta, again, she is just so focused on what is happening, what is the data we are getting. She says, wow, the door is infected too. It won't let us in.
Yeah.
That is so smart. And then after a little aftershock, she says, and terrible, we're all gonna die.
Yeah.
But before the conclusion she comes to, which is that wow, this is bad for us. We're probably gonna die. She's still just thinking about, she just follows the science. Wow, look at what's happening. She's, this is part of the experiment. Wow, all of these things are adapting. This is so smart. Oh, but it's bad for us.
Yeah.
And then Glimmer has to say okay, fine, I'll just teleport in since we can't get in the normal way. And then Glimmer does teleport in and we hear comedic sounds of zapping, screaming, banging. Adora just slumps further and further down in the side of the doorway, totally oblivious, la la la. And then Glimmer reappears, teleports back out, and she is much the worse for wear. Very beat up.
Here is where Glimmer is like, okay, so the She-Ra, hold my beer, I got this power isn't going to work. Maybe my Glimmer super Bamf power is going to work.
Yes.
Tries to teleport in, uses her magical power, is unable to do so with hers. So now we have Entrapta's science, not going to work. She-Ra's smashy smash, not going to work at the moment. Glimmer's teleport, magic, not going to work at the moment. So who else's power do we have now?
Who will save us?
Teamwork will save us.
The power of the regular guy who maybe thinks things through and maybe has a plan.
A plan? Who has plans?
So they're running down a hallway. We know they're looking for their friends when a robot appears, just one robot, and the kitchen staff freak out immediately and cling to each other. But Bo thinks it's kind of cute until it tries to throttle him.
You know, as one does.
As one does. And the kitchen staff are still literally too scared to move until Bo explicitly asks them for help. Like, hey guys, how about a little help?
Yep.
And then again, it's the most timid little blue-haired staff who comes out and beheads it with a plate, which again, these robots are super freaking delicate.
Identified in the script as Bus Girl, and this is where we can say definitively that the robots obey the law of conservation of ninjutsu. Are you aware of the law of conservation of ninjutsu?
No.
I think I may be able to extrapolate it, but I want to hear the definition.
Oh, it's very important. The law of conservation of ninjutsu says that in any scene, in any work of non-realist art, anything that has superheroes or robots or magic, the amount of ninjutsu per scene is constant, so that the more ninjas you see, the less ninjutsu each one will have. If you have to fight one ninja, that ninja will be incredibly badass and extremely hard to defeat, even if there are many of you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have to fight 100 ninja, they're all going to be terrible. And you can defeat them by throwing plates at them.
I love this.
I get it.
I love it.
I get it, man. Yeah, because I mean, we would never get anywhere if each of those robots was realistically difficult to defeat. I mean, you know, everybody would be dead.
Yeah.
You're not getting anywhere with icing and delicious fizzy beverages as weapons.
Yeah. In defense of the way this script works, these are not robots that have been designed by Horde Prime as killers.
Right.
That's true.
These are robots that have recently become evil after having been programmed to do things like sweep floors or, you know, be blenders.
That's true. That's true. These robots were not designed to fight or have defensive capabilities of any kind.
I do not want my blender to try to kill me.
A fear we all share.
Yeah.
So Bo and his kitchen knights are starting to kick some robot ass. And, you know, they're having a little bit more confidence now. But they got through that one. And so Bo says, now, you know, we have to get through all these other bots to go save my friends. And the counterpoint from the kitchen staff is, no thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just ordinary people here. Damn. We're not fighters. We're bakers, not fighters.
And Bo gives a pep talk.
Mm-hmm.
Inspirational speech time.
This is also a little bit X-Men, but everything is, really.
Everything's a little bit
But it's
extra.
also in keeping with other inspirational pep talks Bo has given to other groups in other episodes in the other kingdoms of the regular people to inspire them to step up. And of course, you know, we've had the pink bubble backgrounds in other episodes when we've gazed upon people who were very inspiring. There's been pink bubbly backgrounds. And of course, in this case, it's because that robot was like a laundry robot or something. He had pink bubbles coming out of his robot mouth. And so now the whole background is being filled with pink bubbles again as he's giving his speech. You know, you each have a special skill that only you can do. And they each get the anime eyes.
Yep.
Of impassioned excitement as he speaks. And I almost wish that they still had been trepidatious at this point. And then later, like in another episode down the line, he had crossed paths with them again and they had become all hardcore and been like, yes! You know, like with Bo's dads.
I agree. That said, Bo's dads are the supporting characters for Bo. And you can only attach so many supporting characters to each main character. And Entrapta, when she leaves Drill, comes with her own cast of supporting characters to whom only she can relate. They happen to all be robots. I mean, yeah, it would be great to see the baker and the bus girl again, but you can only have so many people.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and it's not so much that it's like a kid show as that each episode is only 22 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know you're right. But, you know, he gets them up and running. You say you're just ordinary people. I say you're mighty warriors of the rebellion.
Yep.
And, you know, plates are thrown. Icing is squirted. Huzzah, they're ready.
Yep, you know, they learn they have nothing to lose but their chains. The people united can never be defeated. Working people of Drill unite.
That's true.
Etc.
Etc., etc.
And then we get some of our principals who are in a bad place.
Yes.
And Entrapta says what she always says, which is, science, I have made a discovery about robots.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The next scene after we leave those guys is that they're running from the robots, and the next thing that happens is Glimmer says she doesn't have enough energy to teleport them all without leaving someone's legs behind, and Entrapta whips out a knife, and she says, I'll give up one of mine if you give up one of yours.
I love that.
I love that. Entrapta has 6 to 8 appendages that can move her around.
Right. Yeah, she doesn't need both legs.
She doesn't actually need both legs. But also, this, too, in a way, is disability activism and robot rights campaigning, because the integrity of a human soul and the sort of worthwhileness of a human personality does not depend on you having any particular body construction. And the implication is not just that, you know, Entrapta has more appendages and doesn't need a leg as much, but we can always build you a robot leg later, whatever. Like, we just need to not be killed by robots.
I'd be into that.
Glimmer, who is used to being an organic person and doesn't really even understand the science behind her powers yet. For Glimmer, you don't violate someone's bodily integrity. You just don't do that. But for Entrapta, if your foot's not working, then you cut it off and build something that will work better. And, like, of course that's what you do.
Yeah.
This is also Entrapta not understanding that Glimmer is not speaking literally either.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yes, but it seems like this might be the end. Except here comes something. Something is coming through a mysterious cloud that might be made of flour, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
It's Bo and the Pastry Patrol.
Pastry Patrol.
Huzzah, huzzah.
Adora yells, yay, there's a rainbow.
Yeah. Yep, because Glimmer says it's Bo, and Adora says, yay, there's a rainbow. And Bo and his kitchen knights smash the fuck out of all the robots with the tools that only each of them know how to wield.
Yay, using their powers. They're all empowered by using their own powers. Power!
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, when do we get Adora on Glimmer's back again?
I mean, that's happened a bunch of times throughout. We haven't necessarily called it out every time it's happened.
Yo, Glimmer's strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is. She's also really determined.
Yeah.
Like, there are times I feel like if someone just said to her, carry your friend on your back, she'd be like, fuck off.
Right.
But since it's a life and death situation and she feels like there is no choice, she's gonna do it because there is no choice. And that's that. Yeah. It's like the super strength that you get in a life and death situation from adrenaline and whatever the case may be.
That's right. And Glimmer's sources of strength are identified with the maternal in a way that is not true for Adora / She-Ra.
True.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So now that everyone is safe in this scene, Glimmer now recounts everything that's happened in the episode from their point of view to Bo, including how Adora got all weird. So now they don't have She-Ra, so it's hopeless.
And Bo says,
we don't need She-Ra. We can do this together. Yay!
Right. So now it's off to the lab.
Oh, the lab. Can I talk about the lab for a second?
I think you must talk about the lab.
I would love to talk about the lab. So they go into the lab and we see that these organic, pulsing, red, veiny, almost fleshy viral tendrils have taken over the lab. And I noticed that this seems like a visual nod to the 1988 classic anime cyberpunk movie Akira. So there is a particular scene where, they've had this kid isolated, and the experiments started to make this character morph and manifest into this writhing, massive, organic, pulsing, grotesque, mass of flesh that slowly overtakes the room that this character is put in. And it is visually very similar. It's also disgusting.
Yeah, that sounds fucking gnarly, dude.
It's fucking disgusting. It's this this is where technology can completely warp the organic.
Yeah.
Yep.
So one of the things I love about Entrapta is that she's not that. We're going to learn
exactly
that later in the series. But it would be very easy for a worse version of this show to be anti-tech.
Yes.
And the delight or the fantasy of Entrapta is a form of technophilia that is not predicated on settler colonialism and extractive industries. I would like to believe that you can have that kind of technophilia. If you can't, there's no place for me.
I really love the concept and the idea of transhumanism. Transhumanism is the understanding of augmenting the human physical experience with technology, be it a biotechnology or a mechanical technology. And I find it fascinating, and I love the idea of it, but it is so intrinsically tied into access and class that it is almost certainly at this point in our kind of, greater collective human existence, not tied to this kind of horrendous evil power structure, which sucks because I totally want robot eyes and,
Yeah, but also when I think about that, I don't just think of access and class because that implies that it's just about who can and cannot get it. I also think about the possibility of having it be enforced versus being free will.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, shall we return to the lab with the robots?
Yeah.
Robots everywhere, and all of them are evil.
And of course, Adora's like, hey guys, I found the robots. Ah!
Well, no. So they're trying to sneak in quietly, right? And Entrapta brings them in through this little air vent in the corner.
Yeah.
They're all creep and crawl and super quiet. She points out where the disc is, and it's right in the heart of the evil throbbing root system, and she is still fascinated by the science of what is happening in a completely detached way. She is observing. She can't help it.
Yep.
And they all start whispering their plans to destroy it. And then, meanwhile, drunk Adora, hey guys, I found the bots!
Good job, Adora. Thanks, bruh.
So then Glimmer quickly grabs Adora and teleports them both to the top of a thing that's just higher than the bots reach. And then the baking brigade tells Bo, don't worry, we'll get your friends. You two, get the evil thing. Right? And then Bo and Entrapta swoop away on one of Entrapta's prehensile hair appendages, while the pastry patrol chases down the bots to save Glimmer and Adora. Action, action, action!
And I believe that was one of that was my last gaze moment.
Oh.
The interaction between Adora and Entrapta's hair.
Oh, let's hear it.
Well, that's it. It's a for once, I'm citing a visual bit instead of a verbal bit. Just the way in this part of the episode, Adora, who is still giggly and stoned and kind of semi-offline, just kind of pokes Entrapta's hair. It's fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful. It's like nothing I've seen. Wow. And Adora and Entrapta are both in different ways sort of disconnected from the mortal peril that all of the best friends are facing here.
That's true.
Yeah, so we're at the part where they're trying to figure out how to stop it, right? And both trying to take the disc out, and we're like, hey, let's power this down. Once again, going back to the running motif throughout the show of power, and we find that just as our kitchen staff has found the power within itself and is perpetuating its own power, so have the robots.
Yes.
The robots are running on their own power. That is not to say that they are sentient yet.
Right, yeah. Bo has an idea.
What's Bo's idea?
Bo's idea is, as he has previously said, I believe in you to the Pastry Patrol, he now says, I believe in you, because the distinction between animate and inanimate objects is blurred whenever Entrapta is in frame, to the Sonic Arrow, to Chekhov's arrow,
Sonic Arrow!
Which... it's all gonna work, and in a kind of interesting preview of stuff that's gonna happen much, much later, the robots turn against their malign controller.
Yes.
Yay! Thanks, Chekhov Sonic Arrow. That sobers Adora up, like, right quick.
Oh, yeah.
We did skip over one thing about Entrapta when Entrapta discovers that everything is running on its own power. She
Yes.
acknowledges that this is a failure, and actually says that this all needs to be destroyed.
Yeah, she says we gotta get out of here and burn this place to the ground.
And that is Entrapta's recognition that her power doesn't work. So each person has to recognize that they're, in the finality of it, that their power has not worked.
Yes.
And this is Entrapta's final, yes, this doesn't work. I need to destroy it now, which is something that we haven't really heard Entrapta say about her own experiment.
It's true.
That's right.
And then we have Chekhov's Sonic Arrow, and now we've kind of, all of our nice little plot points are coming together. Climax. And then Entrapta thanks our fearless best friend squad and, the kitchen brigade for helping, and would be honored to join the rebellion and provide them with weapons.
Huzzah, huzzah. The final scene is the best friend squad leaving drill and walking home and talking about what they've learned today.
And saying, we can't always rely on our powers.
Correct.
What? Holy crap. That's totally right.
And having to tell Bo that he was right.
Yep, and Bo isn't a jerk about it. Bo's like, yay, all in a day's work for the normal people. And then just to be, just to give a little bit of boost of confidence, Glimmer's like, oh, hey, yo, that rock is looking at us funny.
Yeah.
I think it needs its ass kicked. Hey, Adora, why don't you go take care of that?
Now that Sheer is feeling better,
Yeah.
I think she needs to smash it.
And Adora's like, yeah, let's do this. Smash.
And that's my gayest moment nomination.
It is really gay.
Okay.
Yes.
And I almost forgot about the last moment with Entrapta here.
Yeah.
Because it's there. And it doesn't make her look great. It
No.
makes her look like someone who needs to learn when to stop.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important tag for her, too, because she's not portrayed as, she's definitely not an antagonist, but she's also not really an enemy throughout the episode. But this kind of shows that she didn't really learn the lesson as deeply as everybody else did.
Right.
So the lesson that the best friend squad has learned is that sometimes your powers don't work to save people.
Yes.
But the lesson that Entrapta needs to learn is a little different.
Yep.
Which is sometimes your powers can just really hurt people.
Yep.
And you need to not use them. And Entrapta's science-first mentality requires other people to be really physically around her to stop her from doing dumb things. And we discover here that she has made friends and learned about reciprocation and collaboration. But if you leave her by herself, she's going to keep on doing incredibly dangerous things because she's just so damn curious.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
She has no common sense, whatever that is.
Right. Even when she said in the end, like, that's it, we have to burn this place to the ground, literally half a second before she said that, she was enthralled by the fact that it kept running on its own power after they unplugged it. She had the anime eyes. She was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yep.
That's right.
And then she's like, well, that's it. Experiment failed. We got to burn this place to the ground. But she's still, again, like, she is interested in the science no matter where it leads.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's leading to her own death imminently, she almost doesn't notice.
Because science. Because you have to find out.
Because this is her special interest.
Yep.
Yeah. It's her special interest. She can't leave it alone. She's hyper-focusing. She is us. She's everyone who has ever just not understood what the people around us are going on about because we have to go pursue the thing that fascinates us. And we've been talking for the last couple of scenes as people who know what's coming and who know what the Horde is going to be
Right.
and what role Entrapta is ultimately going to play as these 5 seasons play out. But if you are watching this for the first time, especially maybe if you have some knowledge of the 80s show, but even if you don't, if you're watching this for the first time and you know how Entrapta looks, when her mask comes down, right, she's got 2 faces, and one of them is this expressionless metallic face with red eyes and looks villainy. It is extremely easy to believe that Entrapta is going to herself turn into the big bad. And she says things that in another milieu with another showrunner might mark her as someone who will become corrupted by her interest in science and tech and will indeed become like a Batman villain, will become the big bad. That's not what's going to happen.
Right.
But we don't know that, and the show feints toward or acknowledges a place that it's not going to go, which is technology will corrupt you. And then the credits.
Jenny!
Math!
What did we learn today?
Oh my gosh, this is going to be a tough one to sum up. We have learned so much about Entrapta. We have learned that neurotypical people have a long way to go in making any effort at all to understand the point of view of people who are on the autism spectrum and how much effort they are making to meet neurotypical people halfway. We have learned that Entrapta is a freaking awesome character who the rebellion would be dead in the water without.
Oh, yeah.
Squee indeed. We have learned that drunk Adora is everyone's friend.
We have learned some things about drunk princesses in general.
Oh yeah, we've learned a lot about all the drunk princesses and how much fun they would be to hang out with.
We've learned about disability activism.
We have learned about disability activism. We have learned how important Bo is to his friends. We have learned that all of our friends are better as a team.
Yeah, so, Steph, thank you so much for joining us. And do you have anything that you want to plug?
So you can find me on Twitter. I'm the Stephanie Burt who's not the food writer, and I am accommodatingly, but you can just type Stephanie Burt into Twitter and look for me, and that will work. I am not quite Hyde Park on Instagram, but I'm not nearly as active there, so Twitter's the place. I have a number of things that I make or do that you can go out into the world and obtain if that's what you want to do. The most recent is a book of poems that are fake translations, mistranslations, and enthusiastically inaccurate translations of the wonderful ancient Greek and North African poet Callimachus, and it is called After Callimachus, and it was published in 2020.
I know some really phenomenal illustrators that worked on that.
There's also a book called Don't Read Poetry, a book about how to read poems, and it is what it says on the tin. That was published in 1919.
1919 was it?
2019, not 1919. I'm not that old. If you want to read some poems with me, there's a book called Don't Read Poetry, a book about how to read poems.
Awesome. And as an extra added bonus, stick around after our outro because we are going to have a couple of poems. And we are so excited about hearing them. So stick around after our outro. You're going to get some bonus poems.
Entrapta poems!
It's everyone's dream come true.
We're getting a bonus episode, so tune in for our extended interview with Mishy Kats, and wackiness, I promise, will ensue. If you like what you heard and you want to join us in more gay screaming, or you want to join us in battling evil robots, you can like and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast fix. You can also email us at heyadoracast@gmail.com, find us on Facebook at Hey Adora, a Queer She-Ra podcast, or hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at HeyAdoraCast. And please feel free to leave notes of praise and adoration on iTunes. It helps us with the gay screaming.
It does!
Yay! I've been making Spotify playlists for each episode. This week's episode playlist, System Failure, is available on Spotify right now and heavily features robots. You can find the link in the show notes or by visiting our site at heyadora.gay. And remember, queer joy is radical.
And queer love saves the universe.
So, these are poems that are going to be in a chapbook. It's going to be 20 to 30 pages that will be published by Rain Taxi Editions in Minneapolis, probably this May with a truly delightful cover by Mara Hampson. It's got a bunch of X-Men poems, it's got some other stuff, it's got a poem about Frozen, it's got a couple other Marvel and DC superhero poems in it, and it's got, at least in its current incarnation, 2 She-Ra poems, and the first is called Adora's Song to Swiftwind. Let me comb out your mane and chin and clean your wings. At home in our meadow, at home in turbulence, hold still so you can fly. Let me brush you all over and polish your horns and all your other polishable things so you may carry yourself with all your fetlocks' confidence. Hold still so you can fly. Sun only warms you, lightning only stings. The world is full of color and still scary. You can loft my friends up over any wall. Their love is yours, as you are their defense. Hold still so you can fly. And this one plays a little bit with a verse form called Terza Rima, which it's kind of in, which goes back to Italy a long time ago. Entrapta's song. I admit I might not be a princess. I do not gleam, except from enthusiasm. I will not flee a negative result. If I'm on a team, it's team learning what's real and what works. It isn't me to walk away from an experiment. My allure, I'm told, is my energy, KE equals half mv squared. I sometimes scare the ones who need water to live. I often prefer my Emily or my Darla, and my hair twirls happily when they respond to me or concur with my inductive reasoning. I chose my chunky goggles for the flare around my welding and soldering, though to be sure, they also protect me when things explode. Now that you mention it, they explode a lot. One time, a runestone's hypermolecular core sucked everybody into another dimension. I know I helped open that core. It wasn't your fault, it was my fault, but not my intention. I still want to be a good friend. My polymer mask and gloves protect you from me, and me from the touch I don't expect. I might just be too scared to ask. No wonder I can't stop moving. Life may be kludge after kludge and crufty, but if I stay on task, I vibrate with overall love for it. I'm such a softie for tiny foods. I can program or reprogram any mechanical antagonist, but I can't hide my feelings. I made you a diagram, my lavender bunches aflutter. I made a list. I want you to love me back for who I am.
I fucking love that poem.